Imagine this scenario. You are standing in the harsh, flickering fluorescent light of a rundown convenience store in a small, forgotten American town. It is late at night. The store is completely quiet, except for the low hum of the cheap refrigerators and the rapid, mechanical clicking of a small machine printing pieces of paper. Behind the counter is a terrified, exhausted cashier, and standing on the other side of the counter is an 80-year-old grandfather wearing a worn-out flannel shirt. He is holding a massive, heavy canvas duffel bag, but he is not robbing the store. Instead, he reaches into the bag, pulls out thick, banded stacks of $100 bills and places them onto the counter. He is not buying one lottery ticket. He is not buying 10. He is buying $100,000 worth of lottery tickets in a single afternoon. Anyone walking into that store and witnessing this scene would think this old man had completely lost his mind. They would look at him with deep pity. They would think he was the tragic victim of a desperate, pathetic gambling addiction, throwing away his entire life savings on a mathematical impossibility. But this man is not gambling. He is not crossing his fingers. He is not hoping to get lucky. He is currently executing a flawless, mathematically guaranteed financial heist against the United States government. He already knows, with absolute undeniable certainty, that he is going to walk out of that store, wait exactly 3 days, and turn that $100,000 into $150,000. And the most terrifying, mind-bending part for the government investigators who eventually tried to hunt him down, every single thing he is doing in that convenience store is 100% legal. This is the highly classified file of the greatest legal robbery in modern American history. It is the unbelievable true story of how an ordinary, retired factory worker living in a dying town discovered a fatal, multi-million-dollar glitch in the state lottery system. It is the story of how he built a secret financial syndicate out of blue-collar workers, extracted millions from the government, and went to war against the smartest mathematical geniuses at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. By the time the government finally realized what was happening and panicked, this quiet grandfather had successfully siphoned $26 million out of the system. To truly understand how one elderly man brought a billion-dollar lottery system to its knees, we have to look at the dark, psychological reality of how the game is actually designed to be played. The state lottery is a masterpiece of psychological manipulation. It is a multi-billion-dollar machine specifically engineered by the government to quietly drain money from the working class. Financial experts and economists often refer to the state lottery as a tax on the mathematically illiterate. The government intentionally advertises massive, life-changing jackpots, hundreds of millions of dollars. They sell you the ultimate dream, the dream of waking up, walking into your boss's office, quitting your miserable job, and buying a massive mansion on a private island. But the mathematics behind the curtain are utterly vicious. The odds of winning a Mega Millions jackpot are roughly 1 in 302 million. You are statistically more likely to be struck by lightning, while simultaneously being attacked by a shark on the exact same afternoon, than you are to win that money. The state government knows this perfectly well. They design the mathematical algorithms so that the house always, inevitably wins. The game relies entirely on a concept called negative expected value. In simple terms, for every dollar you put into the machine, the mathematical probability dictates that you will only get 50 cents back. The game is perfectly rigged so that millions of desperate, poor people willingly hand over their hard-earned dollars every single week, funding massive government projects while receiving absolutely nothing in return. But every machine, no matter how carefully designed, is built by human beings, and human beings, even high-level government bureaucrats, make mistakes. Enter Jerry Selbee. Jerry was not a criminal mastermind. He was not a Wall Street banker with a massive team of quantitative analysts. He was a humble, quiet man living in Evart, Michigan. Evart was a tiny, struggling blue-collar town with a population of less than 2,000 people. It was the kind of town that the modern economy had completely left behind. Jerry had spent his entire life playing strictly by the rules. He worked long, grueling hours at the local Kellogg's cereal factory. He raised 6 children with his high school sweetheart, Marge. He paid his taxes on time. And eventually, he ran a small local convenience store just to save up a little extra money for his retirement. But Jerry possessed one specific, highly dangerous trait that the government did not account for. He had a bachelor's degree in advanced mathematics. Jerry's brain did not process the world through emotions or hopes. He processed the entire world through numbers, algorithms, and geometric patterns. He saw the underlying code of things. And in the spring of 2003, Jerry was walking through his own convenience store when he saw a promotional brochure for a brand new state lottery game called Cash Windfall. Something about the specific wording on the back of the brochure caught his eye. He stopped, picked it up, and began to read the fine print. Normally, in massive games like Powerball, the jackpot keeps growing and growing for months until someone randomly hits all 6 numbers. The state hoards the money at the top indefinitely. But Cash Windfall had a bizarre new rule written into its core mechanics. It was a feature called the roll down. The state of Michigan wanted to keep players excited and engaged, so they introduced a mathematical cap. If the jackpot reached exactly $5 million and nobody guessed all 6 numbers, the prize money did not just sit there, it rolled down. The $5 million was instantly redistributed to the lower-tier winners. The people who guessed 5 numbers, 4 numbers, or even just 3 numbers suddenly saw their payouts multiplied by 10. The government thought this was a brilliant marketing gimmick. They thought it would create a frenzy of ticket sales and generate massive press coverage. But as Jerry stood in his kitchen with a cup of black coffee, staring at the math on the back of the brochure, he realized the state had made a catastrophic, systemic error. Jerry grabbed a yellow legal notepad and a calculator. It took him exactly 3 minutes to break the government's code. He realized that on a normal, average day, a $1 lottery ticket was mathematically worth less than 50 cents. It was a guaranteed financial loss. But on the specific week when the jackpot hit $5 million and triggered a roll-down, the math completely flipped upside down. The massive infusion of the roll-down cash meant that suddenly, mathematically, a $1 ticket was worth $1.20. It was no longer gambling. It was no longer a game of chance. It was an absolute mathematical certainty. It was an arbitrage opportunity, a guaranteed return on investment. If you bought enough tickets during a roll-down week to cover the spread of probability, the laws of physics and math guaranteed that you would make a massive profit. It was a literal money printing machine hiding in plain sight, protected only by the fact that the general public did not understand statistics. Jerry did not tell anyone at first. He had to test the glitch. He had to prove the theory with real money. When the Michigan Lottery announced the very next roll-down week, Jerry secretly took $3,600 of his own hard-earned savings. He drove to a convenience store in a neighboring town so nobody would recognize him, bought 3,600 tickets, and waited. When the numbers were finally drawn, he spent hours sorting through the massive pile of tickets. He carefully counted the 3-number winners and the 4-number winners. When he finished the math, his heart stopped. He had made $6,300. He had nearly doubled his money in a few days, completely risk-free. The glitch was absolutely real. The matrix was broken. The next time a roll-down was announced, he went bigger. He spent $8,000. He won back $15,700. At this point, Jerry went home, sat down at his kitchen table, and looked at his wife, Marge. They had been married for decades. He looked her directly in the eye and said, "Marge, I have figured out how to beat the state lottery." Most wives would have immediately called a therapist or a financial planner. Marge simply looked at him, smiled, and asked, "Okay, how does it work?" Jerry and Marge realized that to exploit this loophole on a massive industrial scale, they needed far more capital. They needed ammunition to buy enough tickets to completely eliminate any statistical variance. So they did something incredibly beautiful. They did not keep the secret to themselves to become secret billionaires. They looked around their dying town of Evart, Michigan. They saw their friends struggling to pay their mortgages. They saw local farmers dealing with bad crops and bank foreclosures. They saw factory workers terrified of being laid off. Jerry created a fully legal financial corporation called GS Investment Strategies. He invited the ordinary people of his town to buy shares in the company for $500 apiece. He told his friends, "Give me your money, and I will mathematically guarantee you a return." The town trusted Jerry. He was a good, honest man. Farmers, lawyers, and local mechanics emptied their small savings accounts and bought into the syndicate. Jerry's operation suddenly had hundreds of thousands of dollars in pure capital. And so, the quietest, most wholesome financial heist in American history began. Whenever the state of Michigan announced a roll-down, Jerry and Marge went to work. But this was not glamorous James Bond-style hacking. This was grueling, exhausting physical labor. Because the lottery machines in convenience stores could only print a few tickets at a time, Jerry and Marge would stand inside gas stations for 10 hours a day, waiting for the machines to print tens of thousands of pieces of paper. They would then carry giant canvas duffel bags full of tickets back to their modest living room. For days, the elderly couple would sit on their couch, watching television, manually sorting through hundreds of thousands of tickets by hand, separating the winners from the losers. Their hands would be completely black from the cheap printer ink. They were pulling hundreds of thousands of dollars out of the Michigan state budget and legally funneling it directly into the pockets of the working-class people of Evart. The government's manipulative wealth extraction machine had been successfully hijacked and thrown into reverse. But then, disaster struck. The state of Michigan suddenly realized that the math on their game was losing them money. They didn't know exactly how, but they quietly shut down the cash windfall game forever. Jerry's syndicate thought the dream was over. The money printer was shut off. But Jerry did not stop looking. A few months later, he began scouring the lottery rules of every single state in America, and miraculously, he found it. He discovered that the state of Massachusetts was running an identical game, the exact same roll-down mechanic, the exact same mathematical flaw. There was only one massive logistical problem. Massachusetts was a 14-hour drive away. For the next 5 years, every single time a roll-down was announced in Massachusetts, this elderly couple would get into their beat-up pickup truck, drive 14 hours straight from Michigan, book a cheap motel room in a quiet Massachusetts town, and go to work. The operation had grown so massive that they were moving millions of dollars. At their peak, they were buying over $600,000 worth of tickets in a single week. But what Jerry did not know was that someone else had found the exact same glitch. And these were not small-town farmers. While Jerry was printing tickets in rural gas stations, a group of highly advanced students at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, the most prestigious and difficult math and engineering school on the planet, had also discovered the roll-down loophole. These kids formed their own syndicate. They were brilliant, they were arrogant, they were heavily funded, and they were ruthless. They were backed by wealthy university professors and Silicon Valley investors. Soon after, another group discovered it too, a sophisticated biomedical research team from Boston University. Suddenly, there was a quiet, invisible, high-stakes turf war happening across the convenience stores of Massachusetts. On one side, the most brilliant mathematical minds of the Ivy League elite writing complex computer algorithms. On the other side, an 80-year-old grandfather from a town nobody had ever heard of, using a yellow notepad. The MIT kids tried to muscle Jerry out. They realized that if too many people played during a roll-down week, the prize pool would get diluted and the profit margins would shrink. The MIT syndicate actually engineered a hostile takeover. They waited for a week when the jackpot was just under the $5 million threshold. Then, at the very last minute, they flooded the system, buying hundreds of thousands of tickets to artificially trigger the roll-down themselves. They hoped to catch Jerry completely off guard, trigger the payout early, and steal the entire prize pool for themselves. But they drastically underestimated the grandfather. Jerry's meticulous tracking of the numbers was flawless. He sensed the MIT kids' trap days in advance. He adjusted his buying schedule, completely outmaneuvered their strategy, and still walked away with a massive profit, leaving the Ivy League geniuses absolutely furious and empty-handed. Jerry was beating the smartest kids in the country at their own game, purely through life experience and unbreakable discipline. But the sheer volume of tickets being printed by these massive syndicates eventually broke the illusion. In 2011, an investigative reporter for the Boston Globe noticed a massive anomaly. They looked at the public lottery records and saw that a few specific convenience stores in tiny Massachusetts towns were suddenly selling millions of dollars in lottery tickets in a single day. It made absolutely no sense. The Boston Globe published a massive, explosive front-page expose. They revealed to the public that the state lottery was being systematically drained by professional betting syndicates. The public was outraged. The government panicked. The state of Massachusetts immediately shut down the cash windfall game permanently. The state treasurer ordered a massive, full-scale federal investigation. They brought in the inspector general. They ordered the state police to raid convenience stores. The politicians were absolutely convinced that they had uncovered a massive organized crime ring. They thought it was the mafia, or a highly sophisticated money laundering operation run by corrupt lottery executives. The authorities tracked down the masterminds. They found the arrogant MIT kids, and then they knocked on the door of a small house in Avart, Michigan, expecting to find a criminal kingpin. Instead, they found an elderly grandfather in a worn-out sweater. The inspector general brought Jerry into an interrogation room. They demanded to know how he had hacked their computers. They demanded to know who he had bribed on the inside. Jerry calmly reached into his bag, pulled out his yellow legal pads, and slid them across the table. He looked the investigators dead in the eye and explained the math to them. He told them he didn't hack anything. He didn't bribe anyone. He had simply read the rules that the government themselves had written, printed on the back of the ticket, and he played the game exactly as it was designed. The federal investigation lasted for months, but when the final report was released, the government had to swallow a bitter, deeply humiliating truth. Jerry Selbee had broken absolutely zero laws. He had not committed fraud. He had paid every single penny of his federal and state income taxes on the winnings. The federal investigation concluded that the Massachusetts lottery was the one at fault. They had designed a mathematically flawed game, and a retired factory worker was simply smarter than the people running the state treasury. The final tally of the heist was absolutely staggering. Over 9 years, playing the game in 2 different states, Jerry Selbee's small-town syndicate had purchased over $18 million in lottery tickets, and they had won $26 million. They generated a pure, completely legal profit of nearly $8 million. If a Wall Street banker had found this glitch, they would have kept it a total secret, bought a massive super yacht, and vanished to a private island in the Caribbean. But Jerry and Marge were different. They did not buy Ferraris. They did not buy mansions. Jerry kept driving his old Ford pickup truck. Jerry used his share of the millions to completely pay for the college education of his 14 grandchildren and his 10 great-grandchildren. He built an unbreakable financial fortress around his entire family tree. He loaned money to his friends in Avart so they could save their failing businesses. The local farmers in his syndicate used the lottery money to buy new tractors and keep their land from being repossessed by the banks. The state designed a system to take money from the working class. Jerry Selbee found the glitch, and he forced the system to give the money back. We live in a world surrounded by invisible rules. Every contract you sign, every bank account you open, every corporate system you participate in is written by people who want the house to win. They rely on your exhaustion. They rely on the fact that you are too tired and too busy to read the fine print. But Jerry's story is the ultimate proof that the matrix can be broken. The people who build these massive financial systems are not gods. They are just people, and they make mathematical errors every single day. If you look closely enough, if you strip away the emotions and just look at the cold mechanics of the world around you, there is always always a backdoor. There is always a roll down waiting to be discovered. A true legacy is not just about making money for yourself. It is about outsmarting the architects of a rigged system and bringing the spoils back to the people who actually need it. So here's the question for you to answer today. Think about the industry you work in. Think about the systems you interact with every single day. Where's the flaw? Where is the blind spot that the corporate executives are too arrogant to notice? What is the glitch you have already seen but haven't dared to exploit yet? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single one, and I am waiting to see who among you is paying attention to the fine print. If you want to understand how the world actually works and how the greatest masterminds have quietly rewritten the rules to build their empires, make sure you are subscribed to Legacy Lab. We are building an archive of the greatest hacks in human history. Click the video on your screen right now to uncover the next hidden legacy. I will see you there.